Welcome everyone to today's devotion. We're in 2 Corinthians chapter 3, and if my memory serves me right, I think there's 12 or 13 chapters in 2 Corinthians. I could be wrong on that. But that would put us at the end of today about a fourth of the way through this book. And many of the chapters are short, not all of them. This chapter is certainly one of them. It's just 18 verses long. Yesterday was quite short. Again, I just want to encourage you to keep reading through the Bible. And don't be overwhelmed by it. In 2 Corinthians 3, Paul is defending his apostleship more directly. In previous chapters, like in chapter 1, he used the issue of suffering as a defense of his apostleship. God has called us to suffer on your behalf, and it is through that we experience the comfort of God. So we've seen Paul sort of subtly defend his apostleship. But in chapter 3, it's more head-on. Now, chapter 3 can be a difficult chapter. One of the reasons is because he's making an Old Testament reference without saying he's making an Old Testament reference. And that's where a lot of the confusion can be. And that reference is the giving of the law and the golden calf. So if you're wanting exact reference, be Exodus 32 to 34. I don't know if we'll spend a lot of time on some of the parallels and whatnot, but just for your own study, that may be helpful. Verse 1, it says, "Are we beginning to commend ourselves again, or do we need, as some do, letters of recommendation to you or from you?" I think we understand in general the idea of recommendations. If this person recommends you, their name and reputation comes with it, as well as the reasons they have. Remember that Paul is confronting the false teachers in Corinth, who no doubt have plenty of recommendations from other people that give them a sense of authority. Verse 2, Paul says, "You yourselves are our letter of recommendation, written on our hearts to be known and read by all." It's interesting. Paul says, I don't need a letter of recommendation. What I have is you. The very fact we're having this conversation should be a reminder of our story together. Prior to God calling us to Corinth, the city was exclusively pagan. There was no hope of salvation there. But God sent us to Corinth, and you have become, are you not, our letter of recommendation. Once in a while, I find myself saying to the kids, right, I don't know what else I can do or say to convince you X, Y, or Z, right? I mean, for the last 8 and 11 years respectively, I've asked this, I've done this, I've shown this, right? At some point, that should be sufficient, right? Maybe you feel like that with your boss. I don't know what else I can do to show my loyalty to this place of business, or this career, or to you as my boss, or whatever it might be. But you can only see Paul saying something like that. This is verse 3, "And you show that you are a letter from Christ delivered by us, written not with ink, but with the Spirit of the living God, not on tablets of stone, but on the tablets of human hearts." And that's where he's beginning to unfold this reference back to the golden calf narrative. This tablet of stone goes to the law. The tablet of the heart goes to the gospel. And he said, "I didn't come to give you legalism or Phariseeism," and Paul comes out of the Pharisees. "I didn't come to give you law. I'm not Moses in this sense. But rather what I've come is, to use an Old Testament metaphor, a circumcision of the heart. To come and to show that what God cares about is the redemption of the soul, the redemption of the heart and the mind and the will and the strength. Not so much simply rule keeping. So I don't need a letter of recommendation. What I don't need is any of this sort of stuff. The work of the Spirit in your life and in your church is sufficient for me, and it should be sufficient for you." Verse 4, "Such is the confidence that we have through Christ towards God. Not that we are sufficient in ourselves to claim anything as coming from us, but our sufficiency is from God, who has made us sufficient to be ministers of a new covenant, not of the letter, but of the Spirit. For the letter kills, but the Spirit gives life." So again, you see that contrast between the letter and the Spirit. And that the letter kills, and that the law comes to condemn us. And that's all the law can do. This is the problem with politics, isn't it? If you think that passing a law fixes the problem, you're not paying attention. Think about it. Next time we talk about healthcare reform, education reform, immigration reform, tax reform, all of that sort of stuff, guess what we're doing? We are reforming the Reformation that supposedly fixed the previous Reformation. We just keep reforming things thinking that this will finally fix it, and it never does fix it. That's the problem with that approach to redemption. So you're not going to solve what really ails man through legalism or through law or through legislation or through any of that sort of stuff. So Paul says that I've come to give you a true and better covenant, not the old covenant of law, but a new covenant of the cross. Now within this, I think it's worth highlighting Paul's affirmation of the sufficiency of Christ. So don't overlook that. That is so important and yet so easy for us to overlook. In an age where anxiety is up, uncertainty is up, self-doubt is up, and all this sort of stuff, the reason that is because the anchor by which sufficiency comes has been removed. Paul says that there isn't anything great about us. Go back to 1 Corinthians. We didn't come speaking great words of elegant wisdom, and I'm not even that good of a speaker. But the power is in the cross. And here he's saying that God has made it sufficient for us to be ministers, which means God has given Paul all that he needs to fulfill the ministry God has given him. Now, just meditate upon what that means. If you're a mom or a dad or husband or a wife or employer or employee, a pastor, a deacon, a pastor's wife or a deacon's wife, bless your heart, or whatever it might be, God in Christ is sufficient for you. It's easy to get distracted by all the sort of detail that you can get lost in all the fog. He says that we're not sufficient in ourselves. Our sufficiency is from God, who's made us ministers of this new covenant. Our sufficiency is in Christ. So look, I've been in ministry, I think it's 17 years now. I think we're coming up on the 17th anniversary. It's in October, November, something like that. That is vocational ministry. And I've found that when your confidence is in yourself, that is the first step of doubt and anxiety and all that sort of stuff. But when you surrender to the sufficiency of Christ, that Jesus is enough, what you discover is you have the strength to do things you may otherwise been too afraid to do, or just been in general unable to do. Jesus is sufficient for you. You don't need to add anything to Jesus. You don't need to take away anything from Jesus. You don't need to sprinkle something new with Jesus. Lewis warns about this in Screwtape Letters. Screwtape Letters is a series of fictional letters from Uncle Screwtape, who is, Screwtape is the uncle, who's like a senior demon writing to Wormwood, his nephew, who's a junior demon, about how to tempt this Christian and whatnot. And one of the things he describes is Christianity and. Christianity and a better job, Christianity and a new relationship, Christianity and greater wealth, Christianity and wokeness religion, Christianity and he says, look, if you can get the and in there, and it doesn't matter what it is, eventually what follows Christianity will become the religion, because all the hope and everything will be centered on this. So what you're saying is, I need Jesus, but he's not sufficient enough. And Paul comes here and says, no. Jesus is sufficient, period. He's all that I need to get through each day, whether we're in lockdown or whether things are just going great. Well, you can read through the rest of the chapter. He lays out this this contrast. He'll talk about Moses in the presence of God and all that sort of stuff. But I want to read the end there, verse 17. Now the Lord is the Spirit. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. And we all, with unveiled face, remember Moses going through that, and he shows up with the Shekinah glory of God afterwards, beholding the glory of the Lord, are being transformed into the same image from one degree of glory to another, for this comes from the Lord who is the Spirit. There's a lot here. I just really want to emphasize that where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. If you don't believe me, turn on your TV. Turn on your TV. follow pop culture, or just the culture in general. It's striking, isn't it, that we can have #MeToo, and at the same time we have what is the #1 song in the world right now? You can't repeat in polite company a single line from it, which portrays women by women as harlots. And then Netflix comes out with a movie and a trailer and a poster for it that sexualizes children. So on the one end, we are condemning Harvey Weinstein, while celebrating his name just Hugh Hefner, right? Within like a week of each other. On the one end, it's #MeToo. On the other end, it's, well, forget that part because we really want to see this movie and we really like this song. It's a catchy tune. Where there is not Christ, there is no freedom. In the name of stopping violence, what do? We choose violence. We are not a free country. The Israelites taught us that it took 10 plagues for get the Jews out of Egypt. It took 40 years to get Egypt out of the Jews. That they were just as enslaved in the wilderness as they were under Pharaoh. And that's true of us, isn't it? Where there is no Christ, there is no freedom. No wonder then we struggle with anxiety and everything else. Because when there is no Christ, there is no freedom and there is no sufficiency. Therefore, I don't know who I am anymore. Lord willing, we'll see you guys here next week.